The sun was beating down on the asphalt of the New Jersey suburbs, but inside my husband's sleek Tesla, the air conditioning felt like a literal freezer. "Vanessa, honey, you need this," my husband Mark said, his voice dripping with that smooth, concerned tone he'd perfected over the last 3 years. "You can't keep yourself locked in that bedroom in Greenwich, mourning your parents forever. It's been 3 years. Life goes on." I didn't answer. I just adjusted the silk scarf around my neck, the one that had slipped against the leather headrest, and tried to force a smile. I didn't want to go to a high-end car dealership in the middle of a Tuesday, especially not one owned by Mark's old college buddy from Yale, Ryan. Every time I saw a luxury vehicle, my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a vice. It brought back the flashing lights, the twisted metal, and the rainy night on the Merritt Parkway that had claimed the lives of Richard and Eleanor Montgomery, my beloved parents. "We're here," Mark announced, pulling into a gravel driveway in front of a massive glass and steel structure. The sign above the entrance glowed with clinical precision. Ryan's Elite Motors. The showroom floor was so polished it looked like a dark lake reflecting the rows of 6-figure European imports. The air smelled of expensive sandalwood diffuser and brand new Italian leather. "Mark. My man." A burly man in a tailored charcoal suit approached us, his hand extended. That was Ryan. He was handsome in a rugged way, but his eyes always made me feel like I was being appraised for parts. There was a condescending edge to his smile that made my skin crawl. "Ryan, good to see you," Mark beamed, shaking his hand firmly. "I brought Vanessa. Thought she could use some fresh air, and maybe look at something more modern." They started walking ahead, talking shop, interest rates, luxury tax, and old stories from the frat house. I let them go. I didn't care about quarterly projections or the newest Porsche. I turned in the opposite direction, wandering toward the back of the showroom where the lights were dimmer, and the floor wasn't quite as shiny. I stopped dead. My breath hitched in my throat, and for a second I thought I was having a stroke. There, tucked away in a corner and partially covered by a dusty canvas tarp that had slipped, was a vintage black Cadillac Fleetwood. My heart didn't just race, it stopped. I knew those lines. I knew the specific curve of that chrome bumper, and the way the classic headlights caught even the dimmest light. This wasn't just a classic car. This was the car. My father's favorite. The car that had supposedly been reduced to a heap of melted scrap metal in a fiery wreck 3 years ago. The police had told me the vehicle was a total loss, crushed and melted down. Mark had forbidden me from seeing the remains, claiming it would be too traumatic for my fragile state. And yet here it was, intact. My legs were shaking so hard I could barely move. I reached out, my fingers trembling as they touched the cold metal. I knew this car. I knew every inch of it. I walked around to the rear left door handle. 10 years ago, when I was just a teenager, I declipped my dad's car with my bike. It had left a tiny, hair-thin scratch right on the handle. I felt for it. It was there. They'd tried to buff it out, but the texture was unmistakable under my fingertips. Tears blurred my vision instantly. This wasn't a replica. This was Richard Montgomery's Cadillac. "Mark." I screamed. My voice shattered the quiet of the showroom, cutting through the men's laughter like a knife. Mark and Ryan came running, Mark's face a mask of sudden panic, Ryan looking annoyed that his peace had been disturbed. "Vanessa, what is it? What's wrong?" Mark grabbed my shoulders, trying to pull me away. "This is my father's car." I pointed a shaking finger at the Cadillac. "The one that was supposed to be destroyed 3 years ago. Why is it here? Why is it in Ryan's shop?" Mark's grip tightened. "Vanessa, you're confused. You're having an episode. It's just grief, honey. You're hallucinating." "I am not hallucinating, Mark." I shoved his hands off me. Ryan laughed softly, a dry, patronizing sound. He crossed his arms over his chest. "Look, lady, I don't know what you're on, but this is a collector's item I just imported from a private estate in the UK. There are thousands of these in the world. You're being hysterical." Hysterical. The word made my blood boil. He thought I was stupid. He thought I wouldn't recognize my own family's history. Mark looked at me with a warning in his eyes. A look that told me to shut up and play the good, quiet wife. But I remembered a secret. A secret only my father and I knew. A hidden compartment had shown me once while we were detailing the car together on a Sunday morning in our old garage. I ignored Ryan's protests and yanked open the driver's side door. It wasn't even locked. The smell hit me immediately. Old leather mixed with the faint, lingering scent of the Creed cologne my father always wore. Mark tried to pull me out of the seat, but I fought him off with a strength I didn't know I had. I sat behind the wheel, facing the elegant wood-grain dashboard. I followed the pattern my father had taught me. 2 sharp taps on the far left of the glovebox panel, 1 in the center, and a long press on the far right. Click. The old spring mechanism gave way. A sound I'd know anywhere. A thin, hidden drawer slid out from the bottom of the dash. Ryan, who had been sneering, suddenly froze. His face went ashen. Mark, standing by the door, went pale as a ghost. They didn't know about this. Only the true owner did. The drawer didn't hold jewelry or cash. It held something far more terrifying. The bottom was lined with cream velvet, and on that velvet was a large, irregular, dark brown stain. Dried blood. My heart was hammering against my ribs. My father had died from blood loss, but the police said he passed away at the hospital after being medevaced. Why was there so much blood in a hidden, closed compartment? If had been pulled out immediately, the blood couldn't have pooled inside a locked secret drawer. I looked up at Mark and Ryan, my vision swimming. Why is there blood here? Why did you hide this car? Ryan wasn't laughing anymore. He shot a look at Mark, a look of pure, unadulterated terror. Mark, the man I had slept next to for 3 years, looked like a complete stranger. He didn't answer me. Instead, he grabbed my arm with a violence I'd never felt from him and practically dragged me out of the car, nearly knocking me over. Stop acting like a damn lunatic, he hissed in my ear. Ryan slammed the car door shut and shouted for his security guards to clear the area. That afternoon, in that cold New Jersey dealership, the truth finally pierced through the fog. My parents' death wasn't a tragic accident, and my husband was right in the middle of it. The drive back to Greenwich was spent in dead silence. Mark gripped the steering wheel of his SUV so hard his knuckles turned white. I sat in the passenger seat, pressing my forehead against the cold glass, feeling an abyss opening up inside me. Everything I had believed in for the last 3 years, his support, his care, his words about it being time to move on, it all crumbled into dust. Vanessa listened to me carefully. He finally spoke as we pulled into our driveway. His voice was no longer tender. It was dry and demanding. You had a nervous breakdown right in my best friend's dealership. You made a scene in front of security and clients. Ryan is furious. Ryan is furious? I turned sharply to him. Mark, in my father's car, the very one that, according to you, turned into a heap of scrap metal. I found a secret compartment with blood. Where did that car come from? And why did you turn so pale when I opened that panel? It's a coincidence he cut me off, parking the car. You saw what you wanted to see. Secret compartments in Cadillacs from that year were a standard factory option for storing documents. And blood? It could be spilled coffee or some technical fluid from 10 years of use. You're just not yourself. Tomorrow I'm calling Dr. Harris. We need to reevaluate the dosage of your pills. Don't you dare call me crazy, I screamed, jumping out of the car. I ran into the house and locked myself in my father's office. After his death, Mark wanted to turn this room into a home theater, but I had fought for it. It still smelled of old paper and cigars. I frantically began rummaging through the documents I kept in the safe. The Connecticut State Police report on the accident on the Merritt Parkway. Photos from the scene, which I had been forbidden to look at back then. The insurance company's conclusion. I looked at the pictures. There was a car, mangled, charred. But now, looking at them after what I had seen in Ryan's showroom, I noticed something strange. In the report photos, the Cadillac had modern alloy wheels. My father always kept the original chrome wire wheels. He was a fanatic for authenticity. They swapped the car, I whispered. Someone had moved my father's real Cadillac before the police could record the VIN, and planted a similar vehicle for the fire. But why? And what was that blood in the compartment? I didn't sleep that night. I waited until Mark's breathing became heavy and steady. Slipping quietly out of bed, I approached his nightstand. My hands were shaking as I took his iPhone. I knew the passcode, our wedding date. June 12, 21. I went into his messages and searched for Ryan's name. She found the damn compartment, Mark. Read a message sent 3 hours ago. You said she was a pill-addled vegetable and wouldn't even remember what the car looked like. If she goes to the police and they run forensics on what's inside, we're both finished. Accomplice to murder isn't what I signed up for. Mark's reply made my heart skip a beat. Calm down. She's not going anywhere. I'll make sure she's declared incompetent by the end of the week. The incident at the showroom was a perfect pretext. Get the paperwork ready to sell the car to a private collector in Texas. It shouldn't be there tomorrow. Murder. They said murder. I barely managed to put the phone back before Mark shifted in his sleep. I froze, hardly breathing. In that moment, I realized. The man I had shared a bed with wasn't just a liar. He was a predator who had waited for my parents to die so he could seize their fortune and the Montgomery & Co. business empire. I realized I didn't have time for tears. If I stayed here until morning, Dr. Harris, who was clearly in on it, would sign the papers, and I'd end up in a private psychiatric clinic with no way to contact the outside world. I grabbed my bag, my passport, and the keys to the old Jeep parked in the garage. I needed to get out of the house, but I knew Mark had installed a smart home system with motion sensors. I remembered a side exit through the basement that led to the garden. Slowly, trying not to let the floorboards creak, I went downstairs. The cold New Jersey night air hit my face. I didn't start the engine immediately. I rolled the car out of the driveway in neutral, and only on the next street did I hit the gas. I needed a lawyer. But not just any lawyer, someone who hated Mark as much as I did now. I only knew one such person. Leo Castellano, my father's former attorney, whom Mark had fired right after the funeral. When I knocked on the door of his Brooklyn townhouse at 3 a.m, Leo looked like he had been waiting for me all these 3 years. Vanessa? He squinted, adjusting his glasses. You look like all the devils in hell are chasing you. Worse, Leo, I exhaled, stumbling into the hallway. My husband is chasing me. And I think he killed my parents. Leo sat me down in his kitchen and poured 2 cups of black coffee. I told him everything. The dealership, the Fleetwood, the secret compartment, and the blood. When I showed him the photo of the modern rims on the wrecked car in the police report, he leaned back, his face hardening. Vanessa, I always suspected something was off, Leo said, his voice low. Your father was a meticulous man. He had a life insurance policy and a business succession plan that made Mark the primary executor, if both your parents passed. But there was a clause, a morality clause. If Mark was ever found guilty of a felony, the entire Montgomery estate would bypass him and go directly into a trust for you, which he couldn't touch. So he had a motive, I whispered. A massive one. The company was struggling under your father's old-school management, and Mark wanted to take it public, to strip the assets. Your father wouldn't let him. Leo grabbed a yellow legal pad and started jotting down names. If that car at Ryan's is the real one, and it has blood in a hidden drawer, it means your father wasn't just in an accident. He was hiding something, or trying to preserve evidence, even as he was dying. What do? We can't go to the local Greenwich police yet, Leo warned. Mark has friends in high places there. We need the state police, and we need that car before Ryan moves it. You said Mark's message mentioned a buyer in Texas? Yes, tomorrow. Then we have 6 hours. We didn't waste a second. Leo called a contact in the state trooper's forensics division. A man who owed him a favor from a case years ago. By 5:30 a.m., as the first gray light of dawn touched the New York skyline, we were parked a block away from Ryan's Elite Motors. A large car carrier truck was already idling in the lot. 2 men were carefully winching the black Cadillac onto the ramp. They're moving it, I hissed, my heart hammering against my ribs. Wait for the signal, Leo said, his eyes fixed on his phone. Suddenly, 3 unmarked black SUVs swerved into the dealership's lot, blue and red lights flashing from behind their grills. Ryan came running out of the main office in his undershirt, looking panicked. Behind him, to my horror, was Mark. He must have followed me or tracked my phone. Vanessa. Mark's voice boomed across the lot as he spotted Leo's car. He started stomping toward us. his face contorted in a mask of rage I had never seen before. "You've ruined everything. You stupid, ungrateful girl." Leo stepped out of the car, standing between me and Mark. "Back off, Mark. It's over." "It's not over until I say it is." Mark lunged, but a state trooper intercepted him, slamming him against the side of his own Tesla. Meanwhile, the forensics team had reached the Cadillac. I watched, breathless, as a woman in a lab coat opened the driver's side door. I walked over, ignoring the shouts of the police. "The compartment," I told her. "The secret drawer." She looked at me, then at the dashboard. I showed her the sequence, the taps, the long press. The drawer slid open. The forensic technician gasped. She didn't just see the blood. She pulled out a small, digital voice recorder that had been wedged into the very back of the velvet-lined space. My father's last insurance policy. She pressed play. The sound was grainy, filled with the roar of a rainstorm and the screech of tires. "Mark, please. Why are you doing this?" My father's voice, weak and trembling, filled the morning air. "Because you're in the way, Richard." Mark's voice responded, cold and clear. "The brakes are already gone. By the time you hit the Merritt curve, it'll look like a tragic hydroplaning accident. Give my regards to Eleanor." A sickening silence followed. Then the sound of a heavy impact, the crunch of metal, and the recording cut out. I looked at Mark. He was pinned to the ground, his face pressed into the gravel. He wasn't a powerful CEO anymore. He was just a murderer caught in the light. The trial lasted 6 months. It was the biggest scandal to hit the Fairfield County headlines in a decade. Mark and Ryan were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, and insurance fraud. The evidence found in the Cadillac, the blood that matched my father's DNA and the recording, was the final nail in their coffins. It turned out Ryan had been deep in debt to some very dangerous people in Atlantic City. Mark offered him a way out. Help stage the accident, hide the real car, and provide a dummy vehicle to be burned. In exchange, Ryan would get a cut of the Montgomery estate. I walked out of the Stamford Superior Court on the final day of sentencing. Mark was headed to a maximum security facility for life without parole. Ryan got 25 years. I stood on the steps, the brisk Connecticut autumn wind catching my hair. For the first time in 3 years, the weight on my chest was gone. I went back to the impound lot that afternoon. The state police had released the Cadillac back to me. It had been cleaned, the blood removed, the chrome polished until it shone like a mirror. I climbed into the driver's seat. I didn't feel afraid anymore. I didn't see shadows or ghosts. I saw the man who had loved me enough to leave me the truth, even in his final moments. I started the engine. The V8 roared to life with a deep, soulful purr. I put it in gear and drove out of the lot, leaving the past behind in the rearview mirror. I wasn't Vanessa Montgomery, the fragile widow anymore. I was the owner of my own life, and the road ahead was finally clear. Thank you for listening to my story all the way through. If it resonated with you, give it a like, comment on what touched you the most, and be sure to mention where you're from. Subscribe to the channel. There are plenty more stories to come.